James Carter, a battle-hardened Army captain, sat stunned as the panel's cold words sliced through the room. "You're overqualified." His years of sacrifice dismissed in a heartbeat. The sting wasn't just rejection, it was betrayal. What could possibly come after being told, "You're too skilled to belong"? But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The weight of that single word, overqualified, pressed down on James like a stone. It wasn't just a rejection of his application, it was an erasure of his identity, a denial of his worth that cut deeper than any battlefield wound. He replayed the interview in his mind, the sterile conference room with its bland walls, the cold, measured gaze of Dr. Henderson, and the way the other panel members exchanged uneasy glances when James tried to explain his motivation. His service, his years leading men under fire, his technical skills sharpened by necessity, none of it seemed to matter here. Instead, he was reduced to a threat, an anomaly that the academic establishment wasn't ready to accept. James understood the politics beneath the surface. Universities like Middleton prized their structured hierarchies, the careful cultivation of reputations, and the comfort of predictability. A man like James, seasoned, disciplined, battle-tested, didn't fit into the neat categories they preferred. They worried he would challenge professors, disrupt peer dynamics, or question outdated teaching methods. For them, his real-world experience was a liability, an inconvenient truth that exposed their ivory tower's disconnect from reality. What they called overqualified was really a shield for their own insecurities, a polite way to say, "We don't want you here." He sat in his car afterward, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. Anger simmered beneath the surface, but beneath that was something deeper, a raw, aching disappointment. James had come to Middleton with a vision, to build on his military foundation, to master new skills, to create a future that honored his past without being trapped by it. Instead, he was met with rejection masquerading as condescension. The message was clear. No matter how much he had given to his country, he was still an outsider, someone who didn't belong in the hallowed halls of academia. Yet James refused to let that moment define him. His motivations were rooted in more than personal ambition. He wanted to prove that veterans were not just relics of war, but innovators, leaders, and creators capable of shaping the future. He believed in the power of education as a bridge between two worlds, the rigor of the battlefield and the precision of the lab. To give up now would be to concede to a narrow, fearful mindset that undervalued sacrifice and experience. His fight was no longer on foreign soil, but within these walls, against a system resistant to change. As he drove home, his mind sharpened into a plan. If Middleton's panel couldn't see his value, then others would. He would build allies outside the academic panel, people who understood what it meant to serve, who respected his journey and were willing to stand with him. His military network was vast, filled with veterans who faced similar struggles transitioning into civilian careers. Together, they could amplify their voices, challenge the stereotypes, and demand the recognition that was so often withheld. The sting of rejection lingered, but it also ignited a fierce resolve. James's story wasn't over, it had just begun. The word overqualified would become a rallying cry, a symbol of the barriers veterans faced and the walls they were determined to break down. In that moment, James Carter transformed from a disappointed applicant into a quiet insurgent, ready to fight a different kind of battle, one for respect, inclusion, and justice in a world that often overlooked those who had given everything. The university's polished facade began to crack under the weight of growing scrutiny. Word of James's rejection spread beyond hushed conversations and veterans' circles, morphing into a quiet uproar that challenged the campus's complacency. For many veterans on and off campus, James's experience was a mirror reflecting a harsher truth, that the very institutions promising opportunity often overlooked the grit forged in service. This wasn't merely about a denied application, it was a wound reopened, a signal that despite medals and missions, respect was still conditional, earned only within narrowly defined walls. James himself became a reluctant symbol of something larger. The initial shock had hardened into a simmering determination, but the emotional toll was undeniable. Night after night, he sat alone in his modest apartment, sifting through emails and messages from other veterans who shared their own stories of marginalization. Each narrative reinforced the painful reality. Service members returning home frequently faced a dual battle against external prejudice and internal doubt. The bitterness threatened to consume him, but beneath it all glowed a fragile ember of hope, nurtured by solidarity and the belief that change was possible. It was in this charged atmosphere that Sarah Blake emerged as a catalyst. She had seen the ripple effects firsthand, the subtle, systemic barriers veterans encountered in academia and the workforce. As a Middleton alumna, Sarah's voice carried weight, rooted in years of advocacy and an unyielding commitment to those who had served. When she learned of James's dismissal, she didn't see a mere procedural rejection, but an institutional failure demanding confrontation. Sarah's approach was methodical and fierce. She reached out first to a network of alumni, gathering a diverse coalition united by a shared conviction that Middleton had to reckon with its blind spots and acknowledge the richness veterans brought to the academic community. Their meetings were intense, filled with stories of exclusion, but also strategies for engagement. They drafted petitions that framed the issue not as a grievance, but as a call for systemic reform, underscoring how veterans' experiences could enhance classroom discussions, research projects, and campus culture. Fundraisers soon followed, not just to support James, but to establish scholarships and mentorship programs for veterans, concrete steps that could dismantle barriers rather than merely highlight them. Public forums were organized, drawing students, faculty, and administrators into uncomfortable but necessary conversations about privilege, preconceived notions, and the value of lived experience. Media outlets began to take notice, amplifying the message beyond campus borders and compelling university leaders to respond. Behind the scenes, James watched these efforts with cautious optimism. The campaign's momentum was a balm to his wounded pride, affirming that his fight was not solitary. More importantly, it redefined his purpose, no longer just about gaining admission, but about transforming an institution resistant to growth. Each new signature on a petition, each article published, each forum held was a testament to the power of collective action. It was proof that the shock of rejection could spark something greater, a movement challenging entrenched biases and demanding that veterans be seen not as anomalies or threats, but as invaluable contributors to academic and civic life. In the crucible of pain and exclusion, hope flickered. It was fragile, born from struggle and solidarity, but it illuminated a path forward. James's story, once a narrative of dismissal, began to reshape itself into one of resilience and potential. The university's cold, overqualified judgment no longer felt like a verdict, but a challenge to dismantle old prejudices and build a community that truly honored those who had given everything. The atmosphere inside a Middleton University shifted irrevocably. The emergency meeting convened by the Board of Trustees was not just a perfunctory gesture, but a turning point marked by urgency and reckoning. The weight of public scrutiny and alumni outrage had pressed the institution to confront its own failings, not as abstract policy issues, but as a direct affront to honor and integrity. The trustees, many of whom had previously been insulated from the daily realities faced by veterans, recognized that their silence and dismissal had undermined the very values the university purported to uphold. The formal apology extended to James Carter was more than words. It was a solemn acknowledgement of the harm done, not only to him personally, but to a community that had long been marginalized. It was a rare moment when institutional pride yielded to accountability, setting a precedent for how Middleton would engage with veterans going forward. The pledge to establish a scholarship and support program signaled a structural commitment to inclusivity, designed not merely as symbolic gestures, but as tangible pathways for veterans to succeed academically and socially. Yet, the crowning achievement of this transformation was the establishment of the Captain James Carter Chair of Veteran Excellence. This endowed chair was not just an academic position, but a monumental symbol embedded in the university's very foundation. Funded by the passionate coalition of alumni who refused to let James's ordeal be forgotten, it carried the weight of collective memory and progress. The chair would serve as a beacon, a perpetual reminder that the experiences veterans bring to the classroom, discipline, leadership, resilience, and strategic thinking, are assets, not anomalies to be feared or marginalized. The dedication ceremony was suffused with solemnity and quiet triumph. James stood before a crowd of students, faculty, alumni, and dignitaries, embodying both the wounded veteran and the triumphant advocate. His voice, measured yet powerful, cut through the room with clarity. Being called overqualified was meant to shut me down, but it only ignited a fire in all of us who serve. His words captured the paradox of rejection turned into resolve, bitterness transmuted into hope. This chair isn't just mine. It's for every veteran who has ever been underestimated or dismissed, he declared, his gaze steady, carrying the weight of countless unspoken stories. Let this be a new chapter where respect and opportunity go hand in hand. The significance of the chair extended beyond ceremony or prestige. It reshaped academic culture at Middleton, inviting faculty and students alike to reconsider their assumptions about veterans and the value of experiential knowledge. It sparked curriculum enhancements, mentoring initiatives, and a campus-wide dialogue about inclusion and equity. Veterans found new allies among faculty who understood the imperative of integrating service experience into learning environments, enriching discussions that transcended traditional academic boundaries. More than that, James's journey, from rejection to recognition, became a touchstone for a broader movement demanding respect and equality for veterans across educational institutions nationwide. His story circulated in news articles, veterans forums, and academic conferences, inspiring others to challenge stereotypes and dismantle barriers. The university's initial injustice, once a source of pain and frustration, had ignited a transformative wave of advocacy and reform. In the end, the Captain James Carter Chair of Veteran Excellence stood not merely as a title or position, but as a lasting monument to courage, resilience, and change. It was proof that true triumph is born not from avoiding adversity, but from confronting it with integrity and purpose. For Middleton, for James, and for countless veterans who followed, it was a powerful affirmation. Service and sacrifice deserve more than acknowledgement. They demand celebration and integration into the very heart of academic and civic life.